Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our Open Up episode. This is number 148. So we are almost there to reach 150 episodes. So thank you, all of you guys, for the support. Continue your support. Please continue your support. Um, One thing, couple of things before I introduce, bring the guest for today. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization. It started back in 2020 August, based in London, Ontario, Canada, and our focus is the well-being of boys and men. What are the problems, issues, and challenges that our men are facing today's life, and we want to create awareness, and not only awareness, but also we want to support them, help them through our platform. We are part of International Men's Day. Some of you guys may know International Men's Day is a global NGO, and it's being serving for more than 24 years and around probably, I would say, 95 countries. The International Men's Day is following six pillars. Overall, the well-being of boys and men. We are following the same footstep. Why we want to have Open Up a show podcast? The reason is that men, basically, we don't really share our emotions or verbalizing our emotions, the feelings, and we don't really talk about our own situation challenges with anybody. So we keeping for many years or for a long time, and then so at some point it will explode. So that can bring some of negative or bad impact, I would say, to our body and mind. So we want to create a space, give opportunity to any individuals, especially men, safer space to open up and let them share their life journey. By having them or giving that opportunity, this will engage or benefit some of the men out there. They can actually get some message. So we want to create awareness, one, and then we also want to make a positive impact in somebody's life by giving an opportunity to somebody else to share their life journey. Today we have a special guest, Edward Jones from Trinidad, Tobago, founding one of the founding members of BMen, BMen, Be Male Example Now, the Tobago lead of the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, businessman, chemical manufacturing, Trinidad and Tobago. Before I bring him, I want to go through our disclaimer. Voice of Men 360 is a disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith toward peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have any questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Like I said earlier, I do have a special guest today. His name is Edward Jones. Welcome, Edward.
How are you going, my friend? Good afternoon, good night, good morning, good day, wherever you are at the time that you're listening to me. Sivam,
Exactly.
it's a beautiful opportunity to be here.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate for being here and joining and then willing to share your life journey. What I want to ask you, or I want to take you back probably 5, 10, 15 years old. What were some of the incidents that happened in your childhood that influenced or inspired you in what you are doing right now, either professional or social? Go ahead.
Okay, well, I grew up in a two-parent family, um, where my mom is she's still alive. She's a retired teacher, and my father was a professional civil servant. So what happened was that they are also the parents of four boys and one girl. So what you found happening is that we were parented by people who you can say knew what they were doing. And I think the family and the children, we all are pretty much the result of what we think would have been some good parenting. Of course, good parenting speaks to us being very, very much a subject of our parents' interest. So you found that our mother, who was a teacher, obviously had the first line of ensuring that as boys who did not necessarily feel that doing schoolwork was something that we wanted to do, then there was that first line of defense because my mom obviously was going to ensure that we got our schoolwork done. And then my father, who was definitely pretty much more of an enforcer, especially to the boys, found that if, for example, there was something that my mother needed challenges in, then my father would definitely step in and um, and ensure that we got it done. Um, I was also, and I'm also the first of the parents, the children in the household. So as a result of that, I don't know if you know what happens with the firstborns. We tend to be the ones that get the strictest and the most experimental of the discipline. So I was definitely one of those that had that. But in the main, I think that I am quite happy that our parents did a pretty decent job, and that is us at 15 years old. That is me around 15 years old. Of course, there were expectations and stuff that we had to try to meet, because our parents did set standards for us. Um, the standards I think were high. As a child, sometimes we think the standards were unreasonable. Um, Simply because as children we just wanted to do what we wanted to do, of course. Um, but primarily I think they did a good job in terms of ensuring that we were on course.
Nice. It's inspired me, of course, at the same time, taking back old days, those precious time. I heard,
Yeah.
well, I didn't have exactly situation because I'm the third child. Sometimes they call a favorite one, but we get the pressure because of the boy. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter which country or which ethnic group. Still, the boys are boys, and then men are men. We get the
Yes.
pressure. So I can see what's come from your father and mother from good parenting. That's my second question. Can you share some of the memories, the father and son relationship? Of course, whatever you guys did together or learn from him, and then now you become a dad, and then say things like that. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, so my father was a very, very charismatic person. He's definitely one of the people that you can consider larger than life. He seemed to be that type of individual that was respected by kings and down to paupers. They were always politicians, that kind of thing. He always had that influence. So we grew up with my father entertaining all levels of people in his home, in our home. Um, Even to the time I remember the night, even when Brian Lara came to our house. Um, and we had that kind of influence. The thing though is that my father was always very, very approachable, even though he was considered strict He was always very approachable, always demand that we can come to about anything. We, however, growing up, kind of, it is now that I'm an adult, I recognize how approachable he was because obviously, as a young lad growing up, you kind of looked at him as, oh boy, the disciplinarian. He would maybe give licks hotter than mommy did, you know. But he ensured certain things that I remember very carefully in terms of certain boundaries and certain rules. He was a man who established boundaries and rules. For example, he would establish that there was supposed to be a bedtime in the house. So no matter what happened, no matter what we were thinking, especially at a certain age, there was a bedtime. There was also a time to wake up on mornings because I remember him always saying this: there is nobody who gets rich by waking up late, you know. And he would even say this. I remember he said, Eve, get up early, get the day started early. Even if you get up and you have to go back to sleep sometime later in the morning, make sure you are awake early. Um, there was at one time, I remember this very well, that I was at high school, secondary school, and there was this time when I started really lapsing in my schoolwork and that kind of thing. And my parents were called in, and my mom went, and I got a real bad report from my parents, from my teachers. So when my mom got home and told my father decided that, listen, this is not going to happen anymore. He decided that he was going to stay on my case, and he promised he was going to stay on my case for 21 days. That meant that every time I got home, he would go through every single one of my books. And it was pure discipline that I was going to get if I could not produce homework for my subjects. So at one time, I was like, wait, because sometimes, your teacher will not give homework. But I was so in trouble. I figured that I was going to be in so much trouble that I used to make up homework to bring home for him to see that I got homework. Because the thing is that he was never going to ensure or have any jurisdiction over any child that is going to willfully fail under his roof. So as a result of that, he did that. Suffice it to say, it changed my life considerably. The next major thing I never forget him for is when I got my license for the very first time. All of Canada, all of Malaysia, all of the whole world, I want you to listen to this. The very first time I drove a car license. In other words, as a boy growing up, your father will give you little drives, and so you'll drive, whether you're driving on his lap or when you reach teenage, you drive by yourself, kind of with him next to you. But the very first day I got my license and I drove as a licensed driver, I got into an accident. I didn't get into an accident with another vehicle. I got into an accident by myself. I was driving one car on one road by my own self, and I somehow happened to turn over the car. So here I am with the car upside down on its hood in the road. I've been able to crawl out of the car, and I am in a real panic because I'm wondering now what is going to happen. I called my dad. My dad got to the scene of well, can I call it an accident if it's me alone? But anyway, let's say it's an accident, right? He got to the scene of the accident with his men. He had some men that worked for him. And they all came. I remember it clearly. And they came. My father found out how I was, if I was okay. I said yes, but I'm never driving again. My father and his men, they turned the car back over on its wheels. They checked the engine, made sure that the oil was okay. They started the car. They realized the car could start. I had already gone into the vehicle that they came with to rescue me. And my father said, no, you come. You did this. You have to drive the car out of here. I remember I had to go back into that car. The hood was crushed down a bit. So my head was out a little bit. And we started the car and we were driving. My father sat in the car with me with his head out the other window because the hood, as I said, was crushed down. I never forgot that. My father let me continue that journey. Although I had wrecked the car, he allowed me to continue that journey until my way home. When I got home and several months after the car was fixed, he then called me and said, the next time you turn over my car, I will deal with you a particular way. But the thing is that I always remember the combination of strictness. I also remember the combination of mercy. But most important, I am glad that my mother was able to allow my father to be a father to me. I think, in our society, that has been a major problem where a lot of women, for whatever reason, kind of prevent fathers from being the father that they can be to their children. And me and my brothers and my sister, I think we are products of that combination of wise parenting.
So I see some other things that you learn. Of course, at the same time, you had a great moments with with your father. But the good thing or the important learning here is that you brought a very good point. Last most household or most families, women they don't really allow, or there's some kind of afraid or scared of allowing a men to be men or father to be father. That's
That's right.
very important point aspect. It is not, we don't, it doesn't mean that we don't want to or we are not our intention is not to criticize or putting on the negative side, but that's somehow it's a reality in many houses in any country. So
Yes.
what I want to ask you, because you have been working or you have been part of a number of organizations on the social side, especially be male example now, and also the Fathers Association of Trinidad Tobago, and also you worked with the police associations and worked with a lot of youth in the past. So what are some of the biggest challenges that our youth have nowadays, though? What do you think?
Well, well, first and foremost, our youth, our young men, for example, in our country, for example, and I'm pretty sure around the Caribbean and maybe around the world, are the subject primarily. They are the prime victims and also perpetrators of almost every single crime that there is. They suffer and in many cases react due to a system of violence that um, society has kind of labeled onto them or painted them with. So what you find happening is that in some countries, for example, it is when the murders are against or the homicides are against women or so that it is really looked at as heinous. When the fact is that we have hundreds and hundreds, especially in our country, of young men that are primarily the victims of violence. We also find that our young men are the victims of suicides in terms of their success rate in suicides are almost 5 to 1 in terms of against successful suicides or suicides in successful suicide attempts in their counterpart females. So what you find happening is that I noticed this statistic from very young, and it was always my passion, as it were, to try to see how I can, at what age would have been the best age to sort of stem the tide of um, this negative impact that is happening with our lads, with our young men. And one of the things that I came to recognize is that every if you're looking at men at 30 or you're looking at men at 40, that there is a pattern that causes that mindset at the age of 20. And when you research them at 20, you realize that there's a pattern that causes that mindset, that mental um that mental pain, as it will, or symptoms of some mental situation that is happening from them at the teenage years. And then when you look at the teenagers, you find that, listen, there's a pattern that is causing this, that is happening from them from their pre-teen years. And so what I started doing is that I said that um, I concluded that for us to be able to fix our men and to be able to help them, we need to understand what is the genesis. Because, Seven, there has to be a genesis to this. There has to be a societal issue to this. So what I decided to do was to start actually exploring the mindset of our men and boys from the earlier ages right down to the very, very young. And one of the things that I've recognized is that our young men, especially our young men, are a victim of a kind of neglect that causes them to automatically don't see themselves as a valuable part of a society that things are happening, which is really, really unfortunate, because for some reason, and what I'm going to say here now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people may not have thought about it this way, but men have contributed to almost, as a matter of fact, practically, and this is maybe where that disclaimer that you used in the beginning may actually come in, but I'm pretty sure scientifically and empirically it can be held up, that practically every single invention, every single thing we use, every single platform that we are on, every single road, bridge, building, plane, cell phone, you name it, our men have done it. Yet, our boys are growing up to feel as though they are somehow not worthy. They're growing up to feel that they're somehow not as good as girls. We have had our boys in the school system, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, which is something that I'm working on from a perspective of some kind of policy, right? That our young men, their performance rate versus girls are something like 60-40, where girls are performing to the rate of 60% and higher, and boys at the rate of 40% and lower in terms of comparatively. My challenge to every single news house, every single university, every single institute of change upon the face of this earth, had those figures been reversed, where boys were performing at 60% and girls only at 40% in any school system, my friend, would have been a cause for concern. Right? So when we now have our boys fundamentally not thinking that they are as qualified or as talented or as resourced as our girls, and I have two girl daughters. I have two girls. So I understand when I look into their work, what I'm talking about, and I will come to that shortly. But when you now have a system where the boys don't feel like, if here's what, they see their performance records all the time, they are not as good as the girls. Subliminally, what you're telling our boys is that, listen, you're not as good as the girls. And we have teachers that actually say that. So here are our boys and this is now between the ages of 5 and 10, 11, before they get into their primary form of education to get into what you call secondary school here. Now, when you get into secondary school, it's a different thing because now you have our hormones and that kind of thing starting to act up the testosterone and all of that. And then you find now that the young men themselves, young men really learn manhood through their ears. They learn manhood based on what they are told. Men not supposed to cry. Men are not supposed to do this. Men, you shouldn't take that. You should stand up to a fight. And all of those things are the lessons that men learn, boys learn. But there is no protection for the way they feel. So what you find happening, my friend, is this, that they now, even at a young age, there is no real outlet. The school system hasn't given them an outlet. The school systems have not given them a balanced playing ground, a balanced field. Have not. Right? As a matter of fact, I have dealt with teachers that say boys not doing as good as girls simply because boys playing the fool. That's terrible. So when we get to that place, we now have to come to terms. So that's where I got in. I had to start getting to the boys at the school systems, at the school levels. I've been into many schools in my country, encouraging them, encouraging parents, letting the boys know that, listen, you are in fact awesome. You are in fact a prize. Many of the times, a lot of the things that they tell you are basically to sort of have a sort of a control over you, which is fine, I guess. But the bottom line is that our young men need to know self-value. You see, the bottom, once you get our young men to understand their value, to understand that as men, as boys, we are part of a brand. We are the brand that populates the world. We are the brand that gives life to the earth. We, the men, we are the brand that build things and changes landscapes, right? We are the brand that changed the landscape in just under 100 years, from the sand desert to what Dubai is now. It is the hands and the skill of our men in the main, right, that has done that. Men have a lot to be proud about.
So
Right?
one quick question on the same line, Ted. So what do you think? What's the missing point, or what's the missing link that our younger generation, young men, they are not thinking they are worthy enough, or they don't see that our men contributed so much. So why? What do you think? What kind of what is missing?
Okay, right. So of course, one is due to the fact that there's a neglect in terms of the way young boys learn, or younger boy or young men, how they learn, and the school system is set primarily to allow our young men to, well, to sort of fit into a structure that is not basically their own style of learning. Not only that, but a large percentage of the time, our examples, our student examples, for example, even in our textbooks, are anti-male. You find that a lot of the scripts that are done for literature, for example, a lot of the stuff that are done for our school-based assessments, especially in the field of literature, are more romance or more, you find them being more of the kind of novels that appeal more to girls, and to the kind of things. Maybe if we did a literature series, for example, on an action book like a James Bond, Ian Fleming's James Bond, or something like that, maybe you may find boys actually being more interested in that, right? I remember when I was in first form, I read a book by a man by the name of Jack Schaefer, and the name of the book was called First Blood. My brother, at that time, I was about 11 years old when I read that book. At the time, I never knew that a few months later, a movie called First Blood will come out with Sylvester Stallone as Rambo. But I had already read that book, right? Simply because I found literature that was interesting to me. And obviously it spoke to something, it spoke to the fact that these movies became so very popular means that there are books that can in fact hold the interest of thousands and thousands of boys. But those books never get into the school system, of course, because obviously they're considered violent. And which to me is still missing the mark by the people who legislate and think. I will give you the reason. When I grew up, there were little toys called caps guns and water guns. I don't know if you remember water guns, Sivam.
Yep.
So you spray one another and you be shooting one another and that kind of thing. None of us grew up to be shooters or killers. However, the generation that they banned these toy guns from, they are the ones who are shooters and killers. Why? Because again, as usual, the people who are making the policies are missing the point that what you need to do is that you need to empower our young men to become worthy of themselves. That means that in the school system, they must find a way of bringing the value of our young men up. Very easy way to do that, Sivam.
That's true. That's very true. One place is school, of course. Some people they say or always say we have to start from the family. That's one. But the thing is, like, I want to ask you, as an organization, as an individual, as a society, or even as a government, how we can help these young men.
Right. Well, good. So first and foremost, we need places of refuge for our young men that cannot be invaded by young women. There needs to be a safe haven, just as there are safe haven for girls. There must be safe haven for our boys. That's one. So that somebody can feel like if they have an issue, they can talk about it without a sense of being judged. That is one. And that can actually be for our young men, our teens, and going into young men. But even before that, we need to start to speak a different language in the primary school sector. For example, if you open any English text now, and you look at the examples in the school text about subject verb agreement or anything that has to do with helping our young ones to understand how to speak properly, and they use examples, the examples are invariably like this. Anna is an engaging and brilliant student, while Tommy plays the fool, or Tommy is disruptive. Now, the examples are obviously used to help the children either understand subject-verb agreement or whatever it is. But even in the examples, they make our boys look as if they are irresponsible, as though they are negative. There's a negative stereotype that is pumped into their heads. So I'm saying even from the construction of how our school texts are done, right? That is crucial, guys, to establishing a proper sense of worth, a proper sense of self-being. That is one. So we start at that very fundamental level. We also want to ensure, as we said, that our young men have access to mentors. Now, this is where I think we're going to have some problems, and maybe there's going to be some kickback from the ladies. Our school systems obviously do not have enough men in it. Now, I know the ideal is that we just need to just get more male teachers. But we can, in fact, incentivize male teachers or male mentors, but maybe to bring a man who is maybe purposefully driven in the field of engineering or something like that. For him to come into the school system, there may have to be some special kind of drive, some special kind of incentive, right? Maybe Mikasha incentive. But we already know we live in a world where people feel that women are making less than men. So as a result of that, maybe trying to incentivize men to come in by giving them a little bit more might be definitely not something that women or the world is prepared to do. Again, to me, a symbolism of how poorly they really find, or how lowly they find. I want to put it better than that. So the fact that this may not be palatable to many is also an indication of how low on the agenda of many people the well-being of our young boys are. But I would want to ensure that, listen, we have more male leaders within the school system. It's way too dominated by women. As a matter of fact, in our country, there are schools where children can go for example, for their whole life and never really see a male teacher. Um, so that is definitely one of them. We also need to create mentors outside of the school system and into communities. We also obviously will need to 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 create programs like what I think we just successfully did in Grenada, that builds a certain amount where government, for example, can invest into the well-being of our young men and boys by letting them know how valuable they are. Just doing a major event like Louis Farrakhan's Million Man Walk March, for example, or what the people of Grenada did in terms of this International Men's Day regional conference launch, right? Gives men this sense of importance and honor. Another thing that we need to do, and I don't know how popular this would be, is to be able to teach our young people how to honor men. Men are driven by honor, and that in itself is going to be so it's going to be so challenging because there are so many stories, negative stories on men and what men have done, and as a result of that, you may find that just getting that to be done would be a problem. But believe you me, if we can't get um, systems where our men are treated with honor and respect and that kind of thing, one good way of doing that is to consider paternity leave, just as you have maternity leave for mothers. Consider paternity leave for fathers, right? That is not 3 days,
So
right? That is
I like those ideas. So especially Edward, you have a very good suggestions that we had to do a separate show, the whole 1 hour show about youth, young men, because some of the great ideas how we want to implement too, right? Because it's ideas, but until we do something about it, it's just an idea, right?
that's
So we
right.
had to do something. But I do have a couple of questions. I had to go move quickly. What I want to ask is that I want to talk about be male examples now. The organization, of course, the other one, Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. But before that, I want to ask you, what does mean open up for to you when we say open up, especially men as a male? What does mean to you?
To open up. Okay. Mhm. Wow. That's That's a real good question.
A really
Yeah,
important
yeah,
question.
depend, depends on where they are. And I'll tell you what I mean. Sometimes opening up can simply mean saying how you feel about a particular matter that you would have normally not felt comfortable to talk about for fear of some kind of judgment. That's one. The other thing for me, opening up can mean going to a place of brokenness, which is I feel responsible for this life that I have, that I'm living, even though I may not be the one doing it or at fault per se, but I can still take responsibility for it. And finally, for the man who can simply say, I do not know what is wrong with me. I know that something is wrong. I know that the way I feel and the way I operate are sometimes not in sync with one another. Something is wrong. I need help.
Exactly.
I think those are,
That's
yeah.
what I, that's what I want to hear from you. So when you talk about yourself, but if you talk about other, why is it important for others, other men out there, to open up? What do you think?
Right. I think that the world is suffering because of silent men. I think the world is making assumptions about us simply because there's a platform that is loud enough for for words to be said, although the words themselves do not necessarily represent how we feel or how we think. So it is important for men to open up because there are agendas and plans and protections that our society needs that is becoming pervasive because our men have become silent. I think that our court systems have beaten men so badly, my friend, that they are afraid to challenge the status quo even in a court of law. Um, so if our men remain silent, there's a statement that goes, I'm pretty sure you heard it before, that evil prevails when good men do nothing. And I think that there is a strategy to ensure that our good men do nothing. So, one of the reasons we would love for our men to open up is because when men open up, the greatest lesson I've learned when men open up is that the problems that I thought I have, I don't have it alone.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Many men have the very same problems we have. It's almost as though, as the Bible says, there is no temptation that man has that is not common to man. So you find that there is a feeling or a sense of desperation because you feel you are alone. You feel as though you don't have a recourse. I have gone through some issues personally in my life, some of them still very, very private. But when I heard that people that I admired went through those things also, it helps me it buoys me. It makes me feel like, well, here's a first and foremost, I'm not as bad as I think I am. Or if I am bad as I think I have, plenty people that are that I admire as bad as I am. So anyhow
That's it.
you feel, you feel
That,
you feel
so
a whole lot better.
that's what I heard. Like, if you think your problem is, it's the world is on top of your head, and then you are holding the, I have so many problems, and then if you talk to call some at least 5 people in a day, just to call them and then ask them, what's going on, and then when you at the end of the call, you can understand. Okay, my problem is not a biggest problem though.
Exactly. Sometimes they say that if you took your own problems
Yeah,
and you added it to a pot with everybody else's problems in the entire world,
yeah,
and there was a big thing that says, okay, we're going to give everybody the same amount of problems. We're going to put all the problems in one big pot, and then we are going to share out the problems evenly to everyone. Most people may want back the problems they originally had. So, yes, I think, though, that we men, once we are able to speak up, it helps. But
that's
again, we need to create the safe space for that. I want to give an example. I want to give a great example before we move on about how a home can, in fact, not be a safe space for men. Think about this. A guy comes home, he is depressed. He came from the construction site. The boss was very abusive to him. He and the boss had a disagreement. The boss did not pay him. He comes home to the wife and he says, sweetheart, the wife asks what's going on. Say, well, the boss did not pay me today. He said that I did something and I answered him back, and and he just sent me home, and he said maybe you'll give me the money on Monday, or I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna get the money or whatever. The wife says, okay, all right, cool, I understand. The next day the wife asks the guy to the husband to take out the garbage. The husband doesn't take it out immediately. And then the wife says something like, you see, that is why your boss had to treat you the way he treated you. And that's why people have to be taken, because you always don't do what you're supposed to do. So what happened is that the safe space that the man thought he had in terms of being able to communicate his problems with the wife, on the very next issue that the wife is displeased, threw that very same scenario back in his face. Right? So it is very, very important that a man must be able to give an example. A man must be able to bless, or to be in a place of to be able to share his heart in a place of security, in a place of confidence, right? In a place that is safe and secure. And I think that is very important too.
of course. That's my the next question is how we can break the silence, the stigma, or the cycle. Actually, how we can break it.
I think international conferences like that we just had is an extremely excited way. I think that men have no problems opening up in a bar, for example, in one of those pubs. I don't know what they call them in Canada or around the world, but that place where men just go like a watering hole and they drink, and they open up, and they laugh at one another when it's time to laugh at one another, and they whatever they do. Right? We need to have a place that obviously is not a bar, where our young men can come in, a sort of a safe house, as it were, where it's a safe space for men to be able to come and share without judgment. Um, that I think is primarily it, for that. How else do we get men to open up? Men open up also when they begin to feel successful. When men begin to feel like they are being honored. Um, when I just started working, they assigned me a driver, and the driver was very, very mean. I think he didn't want to drive this young fella, right? He figured that he's a driver for why did this little upstart that just came out of the university. Why do I have to drive this fella around? And he was driving with this scowl, this facial expression that just clear that he didn't want to be doing this job. And when we were driving for about a day, most of the day, and I realized that this wasn't going to work, I said to him, "Stop right there." So I he pulled aside. He didn't. He just grunted or whatever. Pulled aside. I went into the bar and I bought a drink for him. I bought a beer or something like that. That was my first day of work. My friend, 20 something years later, I cannot stop that man from talking. That very same guy. Because the thing is that sometimes what you want, what men sometimes need is, especially from younger men, is that sense of honor. Sometimes we feel we are too well learned, and sometimes we don't show respect, especially us in the Western world. We tend to not show respect for our elders. We tend to not give honor to our elders. And if we do not give honor to our elders will never open up and share what is inside of them that will help us and help us to become better men. So that's one of the things also, my friend, that we need to throw in to help men open up. So yes, for our younger men, we create a safe space for them. But for our older men, we need to give them honor. Right? You cannot disrespect an older man and expect him to open up for you. Right? You cannot disrespect your husbands and feel that your disrespect of your husband is going to somehow make him a better man. It does not work that way. It has never worked that way. Right? Strangely enough, even if we go into the Bible, even God who created the heavens and the earth, still when he deals with men one-on-one, he deals with them with respect. Right? So from that perspective, I think that we need to establish men and establish a degree of respect for our guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. I completely agree. The sense of honoring is very important, though. What I want to ask you quickly, the two organizations, BMen, Be Male Examples Now, and Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Can you talk about what kind of service or what you guys do, please?
Right. Good. So BMen Examples Now is really a group that we have used to target some of our young men, men who would have grown up not necessarily with the benefit of parenting like I may have had or some of the team may have had. But what we want to do is that we still want to teach them etiquette. We still want to teach them chivalry. We want to teach them the mindset, for example, for success. We want to teach them that they themselves must look at manhood as a brand and how we can operate to build the brand of manhood properly. So that's what BMen is. It's really, but not only that, I want us to also establish that our men can in fact be alpha males. And alpha males are good men. Good men are not necessarily nice men. We're trying to build good men. My example that I normally tell them is this: a nice man, right, is nice so that he can get a response from you. A good man is a good man because he's good. He just flows with being good. That's just his nature. So we want to help from BMen's perspective, help the people that come into us as a cohort. That what we want to do is help them to understand that, listen, we can be good men and be unashamed about being good men, notwithstanding what society wants to say about manhood. We are going to stand resolute in the fact that we are going to be a good man. We are going to keep our word in terms of how we are going to develop ourselves and that kind of thing. From the perspective of the Fathers Association, initially the organization was called Single Fathers Association, and it was founded by my very, very, very good friend who actually just minutes ago lost his father, Rondell Fields. And as a result of that, what happened is that it was a single father that was born out of the pain that he suffered when he had the court system caused him to lose the custody of his own children. And there was a sort of an understanding that, listen, single fathers, when there was a separation, then you automatically as a man became non-custodial. There was some assumption in the court system that we understood where it came from, but that's a long story. But that automatically assumed that women were better for children than men were, right? And as a result of that, men suffered in the court system really, really badly. So we had to now learn to so the organization was created to garner support for our men who were going through these kinds of issues. We changed it, however, from Single Fathers Association to Fathers Association simply because we are aware that the terminology single mothers is our crutch. Everything that happens, every problem, everything they say, single mother, she's a single mother. And we were saying whether you are a single father or not a single father, we are fathers. And as a result of that, we no longer carry the name Single Fathers Association. We are now just Fathers Association, whether you're single or whether you're not.
So there are a lot of things you shared in the past 1 hour. Ted, thank you. I really appreciate that. A lot of information, a lot of different perspectives, and then important points too. It doesn't matter either male or female, any gender. At the same time, that as an organization, as an individual, how we can support, how we can help men out there, even young boys out there. We can do whatever we can. So I just want to thank you again, Edward, for joining today and then opening up and then sharing your life journey with us. Of course, there are a lot of things. I have a lot of questions to ask you, but because of the time, we will bring you back and then have a more question, more discussion around different topics. So, thank you for
No
joining
problem.
today. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
So today we had a very good conversation with Edward Jones from Trinidad Tobago, and then so he shared his life journey with us, and absolutely, uh, whoever is watching, one request, humble request to all of you guys. So of course you are watching and then you are listening whatever he was sharing in the last 1 hour, but you have to think about that and also share with other people. This is the only way that we can bring or reach out more people and get we can help more people. So with that simple request, I want to end with this the show today. You can check out our website, social media, Voice of Men 360. On YouTube, we have done more than 400 episodes on various topics, discussion. You can go and check it out. And then also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voice of Men 360. And especially on Facebook, we have a group, we have a page you can join. You can see daily activities, Voice of Men 360, and also TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, every social media platform we are there, so you can check it out. And also, anyone, if you want to really share your life journey, please contact us 226 8289 8784, 226 289 8784, or info at voiceomen360.org. Our website is www.voiceomen360.org. Please reach out to us and please help our organization. At the same time, if you want to join our organization or contribute, or even if you want to be part of the show, please let us know, reach out to us. All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you for watching.